Welcome, one and all, to the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman. I hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, you are having a fantastic start to your week. Hope everybody had a great weekend in Braves country. Of course, I'm here with my podcast partner, Stephen Tolbert. And I don't know if you were a fan of Sesame Street growing up, but as you were growing up, you always noticed that, this segment or this show or whatever it is brought to you by a certain letter or a certain number. Well, this show is going to be unofficially brought to you by a single number, and that is the number 1, because that's all that matters right now in Braves country. For the 7th straight game, first time since 2005 the Braves have had such a streak, but for the 7th straight game, the Braves not only won by 1 run, but in 6 of those 7 games, it came down to the final ending, whether they won or they lost. If you're a fan of drama, the Braves are your team right now, but if you're a fan of good baseball, it's still hard, despite some good winning here lately, it's still hard to say that the Braves are playing good baseball. But beyond all that, as always, my podcast partner, Stephen Tolbert. Stephen, good talking with you, man. I'm about to have to get on some blood pressure medicine.
Yeah, they're not giving us any sort of relief here lately. And I don't mean that as tongue in cheek with Rossiel. I just mean, offense is where you go to get blowouts and where you go to get easy wins and, score 11 runs in a game and you kind of cruise to a victory. And, we saw back 2 of those games back to back in the first 2 games in Colorado where the Braves just kind of manhandled a bad team, scored a bunch of runs. It was an easy win. And since those 2 games in Colorado, the Braves have basically played, 15 games and have not won a single one of them in what you would call runaway fashion. They have just been absolute hold on tight, hold on for dear life affairs. And listen, the last 7 games have all been by 1 run. The Braves record in those 7 games is 4-3. That's what happens when you play 1-run games. Like, in general, in Major League Baseball, 1-run games are supposed to be about a 500 record. And if you deviate too much off of a 500 record in 1-run games, you're kind of considered lucky or unlucky. Just because in a 1-run game, a million different things can happen that can swing that game one way or the other. And we saw it tonight with a random Nick Allen error, which he hasn't had all year. Could have easily swung that game. Now, it didn't end up hurting the Braves. The Braves won the game. But when you play these low-scoring, close games, and especially 1-run games, any number of things can flip the game either way. And that's why you generally expect a 500 record when you play these things. And that's why the Braves have seemingly been playing 500 baseball for like the last 3 weeks, is because they can't score. And that's why their record sits almost exactly at 500. The record in the last 10 is almost exactly at 500. Everything about this team is kind of like a 500 team right now because they can't score. And until they get some offense, this is our future where we're going to have to hold on tight, a la 2024. We're going to have to hold on for dear life for every out because it's a 3-2 game in the 9th inning. And it just seems like in the last 162 games this team has played, it just feels like that's what we've done. It's just every single game. The Braves scored 3 runs, and now we're just waiting to see if the pitching staff can make it hold up. And it's just that same game on repeat over and over again. And they won tonight, which is fantastic. Obviously, walk-off, great win. But good Lord, let's score some runs and maybe get one of these things in the house by the 6th inning.
Well, and to Steven's point, he's not being dramatic when it said it literally feels like it's been a year. For example, go back exactly a year ago. Between April 27th of 2004 and May 13th of 2004, the Braves played 14 games. They went 14 games of scoring 5 or less runs. 14 straight games exactly a year ago. Over their past 12 games, from April 30th of 2025 to now, they've now gone 12 straight games, scoring 5 runs in a row. So we're literally right now going through the same offensive struggles that we did a year ago. 10 of their last 12 games have been decided by 1 run. The Braves, thankfully, are 6-3 over their last 9 games. But in those 9 games, the Braves starting pitching has allowed 13 runs, and we're only 6-3. And in 7 or 8 of those games, it's come down to the last at bat, either for the Braves or the other team. Of course, as I mentioned, the Braves have now played in 7 straight one-run games. The first time in 20 years they've gone through such a stretch. I had a couple of people tweet at me, and it was a good observation. This very much feels like that stretch in 2021 where we won, lost, one loss, one loss, one loss. And to Steven's point, if you're going to consistently play one-run games, you're likely going to be 500. Well, the reason why the Braves are 500 right now is not only because they're playing one-run games, but over the past 2 or 3 weeks, they literally have had a top 5 pitching staff in baseball. Over the past 3 weeks, they literally had a bottom 5 offense. That is the definition of a 500 team. But it goes back to the reason why I think many would say, if you have a young hitter or you have a young pitcher, give me the young hitter. Because with offense, when you score runs, your margin for error is greater rather than having pitching as your strength. These random bullpen blowups, the Nick Allen error, all those infield hits in Pittsburgh over the weekend, none of them are remembered if we at least score 5 runs in 3 or 4 of these games, Stephen. That's the thing that stands out above all else. If you score runs, these miscues don't matter as much. The Braves have got to be able to get over that hump of scoring 5 or more runs a game.
Yeah, and then there's also an additional cost to playing all these one-run games. And it's not just your record, but it's the amount of time you're using your bullpen and specifically your high leverage relievers. I mean, how many games in a row have we thought, well, I wonder which high leverage relievers are down today because they've pitched in 3 of the last 4 or back-to-back games. I mean, every single game the Braves are having to pitch Daysbell and Dylan Lee and Pierce Johnson and Horacio Iglesias. And we'll talk about Iglesias in a minute. I know everybody wants to talk about Iglesias, but they're literally being pitched every single night because the Braves cannot win a blowout game. And man, that's just there's a cumulative effect on your bullpen that is, I mean, I think we're seeing it a little bit. Like blowout, like the best thing to do for your bullpen is to have an off day, right? Obviously, that's the best thing. Well, the best way to have the off day is either have an off day in the schedule or blow a team out and you give them a de facto off day. Well, the Braves haven't blown out anybody in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So this is the cost. The additional cost of these one-run games is not only does your record suffer because you're not going to win 7 one-run games in a row. It's just not, that's not how it works in Major League Baseball. But also your bullpen gets taxed and your high leverage relievers get taxed at a level that is not sustainable for 6 months. So, and we watched this all last year, right? Like basically after the hot April last year and Acuna went down, this is the game they played all season last year. And so Braves fans are specifically, are getting tired of watching this exact same game. And so that's why I think you see the frustration of fans, even though the team objectively, like, listen, being 1 game under 500 on May 12th is perfectly fine. Like, you can still accomplish everything you want to accomplish in a baseball season being 1 game under 500 on May 12th. The reason the fans are particularly frustrated right now is because we have literally been watching the game we watched tonight for I would say the last 170 games or so over the last 2 years. And it is exhausting to constantly watch your team see if they can, make 3 runs hold up. That is just an exhausting way to go through any season. And now we're into the 2nd season of this. And that's why Braves fans are so frustrated. And I get it. I'm frustrated too. They won tonight, which is great, but they got to score more runs, or this back and forth, win, loss, 1-run game after 1-run game. You're never going to sustain any sort of success that way. Score some runs, give your high leverage relievers a night off, for the love of God. Give your high leverage relievers a night off. And then that's how you build a winning streak. That's how you win 7 in a row or 8 in a row or 10 in a row or 11 of 15 or whatever, is you have some blowouts where one random play in the field is not going to cost you the game. The Braves right now, every single little mistake seems like it puts the game in jeopardy because there's no margin of error. And that's just, God, that's an exhausting way to go through a season.
Absolutely. And we talked about it, last year, how the first 3.5 weeks of the season really were what kept the Braves above water despite all their struggles, because they had such a hard time getting above 500 if you started the season back on April 27th. Last year, when they started that 14-game streak of not scoring 5 or more runs, that goes back about 175 games. That's when all this started. So
Yeah.
it literally has been going on for more than a full year. But back to tonight, I will say this, though there were some frustrations, another one-run game, it seemed like implosion from the bullpen. We'll discuss that specifically in just a moment. But I think going sequence by sequence through this game, I think it's going to be fun to talk about, because if you do, I think there's some positives to also talk about that could give the Braves a base for a winning streak. We'll talk about that after a word from our partners.
This is a straightforward show, so I'm going to be very straightforward with everyone about PXG. Fastest way to improve your performance on the golf course is to get yourself a PXG golf fitting. Go in there and let the experts help you.
I've been using PXG for a few years now, Scotty. They are perfect. I love the way they feel. They fit them perfectly to my swing. They weighted them. They put grips in them. They put shafts in them. They use their heads, and they fit my swing beautifully. They have definitely improved my game. They just recently hooked me up with their new Allen putter, which is off the chain. I was draining putts the other day, left and right. So I definitely say go get your fitting at PXG. Nobody goes golf the way PXG does.
Yes, and for a limited time, you could save up to 20% on your entire order. Head over to pxg.com/foul. That's pxg.com/FOUL to save up to 20% on your entire order. pxg.com/foul. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
So, Stephen, let's talk about the start of this game. And I will say this, we talk about the fact that the Braves offense has struggled. One encouraging takeaway from this game is that, in my opinion, from an offensive standpoint, tonight's game was actually one of the better games we've seen in quite a while. Take this, for example. Their first 13 batters of the game, the first time through the order, up until Marcell Ozuna batted a second time. So the first 13 hitters of the game, 0 strikeouts, 2 walks. Every ball, that means that of 11 of the first 13 hitters for the Braves put the ball in play. And each ball in play was 93 miles an hour or better in terms of exit velocity. 9 of those 11 balls in play were 97 miles per hour exit velocity or higher. The first 7 batters of the game for the Braves put the ball in play at 97 miles per hour or better. This team was making hard contact, and through the first 2 innings, they just could not buy a hit. They finally broke through in the 3rd inning. So, Stephen, I will definitely take that as something to build on. The approach at the plate and the overall quality of contact for this team was much better tonight compared to the past few weeks.
Yeah, the process was certainly better tonight. And we focus a lot on process on the show in all regards, with, performance on the field, with the manager's decisions. We kind of, that's kind of our thing. Brad says it all the time, but it's kind of what this podcast is very process focused. So it was a much better process oriented game tonight. The at-bats were significantly better. With any amount of luck, they could have been up 4-0, 5-0 after the first 4 innings of the game. And I think they were up 2-1 after Woods hit that homer. So I know fans don't want to hear that. Listen, I get it. I know nobody in Braves country wants to hear about the batted ball data, about how hard the Braves are hitting it, about bad luck. No one wants to hear that. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but the process was better tonight. And if you keep doing that, then you should get some positive, some better results than they got tonight. Listen, I thought Brad Scott and Grant did a good job talking about this last night. Through all the frustration of yesterday's game in Pittsburgh, like, objectively, that was an unlucky game. Like, Pittsburgh had a ton of weak ground ball singles. The 9th was kind of the perfect encapsulation of that. And I thought it was an unlucky game. Just objectively, I thought yesterday was an unlucky game. The Braves, with neutral luck, I think would have won that game. But again, I know fans don't want to hear that. So the Braves need to score more runs. And they've got, multiple guys on this team that make $20 million plus. They've got, long histories. All, you look at a Fangraphs page, a Baseball Reference, back of the baseball card, whatever you look at for stats, there is a long history for a lot of these hitters of being great hitters. And they should not. The Braves right now are 21st in baseball in runs scored. They're dead last in the National League East. The Marlins, the Nationals have scored more runs than the Braves this season. That is a joke. That's just a joke. The money the Braves have spent on players, the history some of these guys have. I know Acuna's not been out. And I know Profar has not been in the lineup, but they shouldn't be behind the Marlins. The Braves should not be behind the Marlins in runs scored a quarter of the way through the season. It just shouldn't happen. So they got to score more runs. And it was a good win tonight. But if you keep playing these one-run games, you can then keep doing this, where you win one, you lose one, you win one, you lose one, you win one, you lose one. It's no way to build any momentum. And just like one 7-run game where you win 7-1 or 7-2, God, that would just feel so good. And maybe actually get some momentum. I don't necessarily believe just winning more one-run games is going to be the momentum. What's going to be the momentum was when the Braves come out and score 12 runs in a game. And everybody feels good. And it's like, okay, this is sustainable. This is how we can go on a run, not winning 3-2 because the pitching staff held up. So that's what I'm looking for starting tomorrow. Let's start tomorrow. That would be great. Start tomorrow. Nationals are not a good team. Start tomorrow. Let's go. Let's score some runs.
Well, and yes, the focus is obviously on scoring runs, but I also think an underrated story from this game was a pair of clutch bounce back performances, and that was Grant Holmes, who his last time out against the Reds gave up 2 homers, gave up 4 runs. He lost the lone loss that the Braves suffered to the Reds in that series, but tonight was excellent. I believe 6 innings pitched. Obviously, only gave up the 1 run, the home run to James Wood. By the way, before I forget, that top of the order for the Nationals was CJ Abrams and James Wood. I knew Wood was having a really good year. I didn't realize CJ Abrams was having a good year as he had. That's one of the best young 1-2 combinations in the majors. It's no small feat being able to hold that lineup under 3 runs in a game. A very good top of the order for the Nationals. But Grant Holmes pitched well. But also I want to shine the spotlight a bit on Daysbel Hernandez. In that game, in that second game against the Pirates, he gave up that infield single to Gorski. And after he gave up that infield single, you could kind of see Daysbel get a little frustrated. He got a little wild, unfortunately. And then tonight, he came out and started off a little wild as well. And so you got Abrams and Wood coming up, runners on first and second, nobody out. You're thinking, oh, great, here we go again. But Daysbel was able to get the double play against Abrams. He was able to strike out Wood. I believe he struck out Wood. Yes. Yeah. But my point is that to me just goes to show how good a stuff Daysbel has. Even when he's a bit not himself, doesn't have his clearly best stuff. He's a bit wild. His natural stuff still shine through. So a great bounce back performance from Grant Holmes and Daysbel Hernandez really helped out in making this a winnable game for the Braves.
Yeah. Just for tonight's game, I thought that Abrams at bat against Daysbel was maybe the biggest at bat of the game. The Braves were up 3-1. I think the Nationals had 2 guys on, and Daysbel had just hit a guy. That's right. Daysbel had just hit a guy, and he started 2-0 to Abrams and was nowhere near the plate. And then Abrams swung at the next pitch to make it 2-1. Daysbel threw another pitch nowhere close. It was 3-1. Daysbel threw another pitch nowhere close, and Abrams swung at it. And not only did he make an out, he made a double play. And that just took all the air out of that inning. If he takes that pitch and it's bases loaded with 1 out with Woods at the plate, that could have been a much different game. And so I thought that was actually, I hate to say this, I tweeted this at the time. I know it's not a nice thing to say. It kind of reminded me of an Ozzie Albies at bat a little bit, where it's like he kind of swung himself out of a walk and kind of killed an inning because he was way too aggressive. But it did. It reminded me of an Ozzie Albies at bat. So I thought that was probably the biggest sequence of the game. And obviously we got to the 9th, and we can talk about the 9th here in a minute. But yeah, listen, Grant Holmes pitched well. I mean, I have to give credit to this starting rotation, and especially Grant Holmes, Bryce Elder, AJ Smith-Shawver. The dudes just keep stacking good starts. especially when it comes to like Bryce Elder, I'm stunned every time. Grant Holmes, I'm not stunned by, but I'm probably not as big a Grant Holmes believer as a lot of people are. And they just keeps now. Listen, the competition has not been great lately. The Reds, the Pirates, the Nationals, these are some of the worst offenses in baseball. So when they play the Rockies, like I get that. That matters. Context matters. We do want to mention the context, but still, they're major league hitters. You got to get them out. And these guys just keep stacking really good outings. And I tell you what, when we're going to talk about Strider here in a second, there's going to be some fascinating conversations and decisions that have to be made with the rotation pretty soon. And there's not a single guy in that rotation that's making it an easy decision. And that's a compliment to all of them because they're all every time out giving the Braves a chance to win these games. If the offense can do anything at all, the Braves have a chance to win these games. And from a pitching perspective, that's literally all you can ask.
Speaking of all you can ask, I think another thing that really needs to be talked about in this lineup is that 3 guys tonight. The Braves had 10 hits overall, but 3 guys had multiple hits tonight. The only Braves that had two or more hits, and I think each one of them are notable. Alex Verdugo, Marcell Ozuna, as well as Michael Harris. You want to talk about guys who are doing what you expect them to do. Listen, Michael Harris has been swinging a pretty good bat as of late. Alex Verdugo has been struggling quite a bit. Probably his best game that he's had maybe in May, or at least it's been 10 or so days since he's had a good game. And Marcell Ozuna went deep, got a walk, got multiple hits. These are the type of games that you expect from him on a regular basis. A really good performance from those 3. And again, when we talk about, even though they only scored 4 runs, yes, they won again late. Yes, again, they only won by 1 run. When you talk about building blocks to get the offense going, not only is it the approach to the plate, but the depth of the Braves lineup. You get those guys going and then have Riley and Olsen doing their thing as well. That's where you can start putting those wins together with the offense going well, is when you have more than half of the lineup producing. It was good to see the nights tonight that we saw from Verdugo, Ozuna, as well as Harris.
Yeah, I mean, Verdugo getting that game-winning hit in the 9th, I'm sure meant a ton to him. Obviously, he started off the game with a double. It was really nice to see Ozuna hit one to the moon. I mean, I think Marcell hit that thing. I think that thing went like 460. That was one of probably the longest. I have to look. Maybe one of the longest home runs of the year for the Braves. It's probably in the top 5 for sure. So yeah, that's good to see. Obviously, Michael had a good night. The Braves do need especially Michael, Harris and Ozzie and Brad and Scott and Grant talked about this last night. Like Michael Harris and Ozzie Albies specifically, the Braves need a lot more from. Verdugo, listen, they signed him for $2 million. I have a hard time putting a lot of expectation on Alex Verdugo. Like he was supposed to be a 4th outfielder, maybe even like a 5th outfielder, quite honestly. And he got off to such a hot start that expectations probably went up. He shouldn't have to be one of your best players. He's having to be because Acuna's hurt and Profar popped a positive on a drug test. So that's why we're here with Alex Verdugo. So, but seeing Ozuna really drive a ball was probably the best sign of the night, if I'm being honest, because that dude can legitimately carry an offense for a long stretch of games if he's right. And I don't think he's been right. I don't think he's been right for going on 2 or 3 weeks now. And I think some of it is he has been very, very patient at the plate. And I think some of that has taken away maybe how sharp he is. And he's had some really hittable pitches that he's missed because of it. So to see him get a really fat pitch and launch it 20 rows deep, that was probably the most encouraging swing of the night. And that's what I'm hoping we see kind of start something. The Braves have not been hitting homers at the rate they need to be hitting homers either. So that's kind of the thing that I want to see really get going. And Marcell is obviously a massive, maybe the biggest piece of that. So really good swing, really good game by Marcell tonight. And boy, do the Braves need it.
And just one other quick thought before we go to hear another word from our partners. Raisel Iglesias did his job tonight. I'm going to put that straight out there. Raisel Iglesias gave up a couple of hits. They were good place change-ups that you got to give the Nationals credit. They made contact, put it where the defense wasn't. Runners on 2nd and 3rd, 2 outs. hard hit ball, but it goes to your Gold Glove level shortstop, and he makes an error. Raisel Iglesias did his job tonight. I know that he struggled quite a bit, but I do want to make that point. Iglesias did his job tonight, and it's another example of why it makes sense to stick with him for now.
Yeah, I do think it's fair to say that Raisel is not getting the swing and miss that you would want out of a closer. And so batted ball variance becomes a storyline. The more contact you give up, of course, batted ball variance matters more. So I think that's a fair criticism, and one that people have pointed out, that you want your closer to be missing more bats. 100%. The pitches were located so much better tonight. I mean, both of those hits that he gave up were perfect changeups, either on the dot, on the black of the plate, or even off the plate, that the guys just made great swings and got singles off of. You know, even like the Josh Bell ball right back to the mound, if that goes through Iglesias' legs, Nick Allen is literally standing on second base. That's an easy double play. But it hits him on the foot, and so they only get one out of it. And then obviously the next guy hits the ball at the middle in the air and 2-run score. So, yeah, I have a hard time blaming Raisel. I know everybody's going to blame Iglesias just because he's had a bad season. A bunch of weak contact, 1 inch here or there on a bunch of balls that the game's over. So, yeah, this was not even in the top 5 of worrying appearances we've seen from Raisel, where we've seen him leave pitches over the middle of the plate that get destroyed. Those are the ones that cause me concern. When he's dotting his pitches where he wants, like tonight, and guys just, kind of flail at it and the ball just goes in the right spot, I don't really worry about those, because that's not sustainable. So yeah, I know people want to kill Raisel, but I'm certainly not going to after that. That was much more bad luck than anything.
Absolutely. But get the win tonight. And we also heard some pretty good news on some pretty important people earlier in the day. That and a pretty special pitching matchup tomorrow night. One about a current Brave that we all love and a former Brave who we're all going to be happy to see back at Truist Park.
Sometimes we get the asks for lightweight hoodies, and I'm like, they exist. They're awesome at Rowback.
Without a doubt. Comfort, lightweight, durability. I wear these all the time. The color schemes are absolutely phenomenal.
Go check it out. You can use the code FOUL on rowback.com for 20% off your first purchase. That's FOUL on RHOBACK.com. 20% off all shorts, hoodies, polos, and more. Go check out Rowback.
Welcome back to the Hammer Territory podcast. And so let's talk about the other big news of the day when it comes to Ronald Acuna Jr. Now, the thing is that the news is something that we all expected, but I think that it's important to make sure that we get the details about this. The news that came out today, of course, if you go back a week ago, the thought was that Acuna may have to go back to LA to get checked one more time. And then that would kind of be the catalyst to let the Braves get going on starting to define his comeback to the majors. Well, it was revealed that they did not need to do that. So today, on Monday, earlier in the day, it was revealed that tomorrow, on Tuesday, Ronald Acuna Jr. would begin working at the Florida Complex lead of the Braves. Now, I think that it's important. It's very important to make this distinction. This, in my opinion, does not mean that he is starting a rehab assignment. I think one key factor about Ronald Acuna Jr. to remember, he had no formal spring training. He did some work on backfields. He did different things, staying in shape, working his way back, into baseball shape, basically. But he did not have any type of real spring training. This basically is the equivalent of him starting spring training. So he's not really starting on a rehab assignment. What gets interesting, Stephen, and I've tried to look this up, think that you probably have a bit better perspective, is that I know that when position players start a rehab assignment, they've got 20 days to work their way back. Him starting at the Florida Complex League, is that the 20-day start, or is it, from what I saw, it's him being officially assigned to a minor league affiliate, which I don't think this is. But either way, good to see him back. But I think that it's important to understand we're still likely weeks away from him returning, whether it's 3 weeks or maybe a little bit longer. The step after this would be that rehab assignment.
Yeah, so Bowman worded it as Acuna will start his rehab stint at the Florida Complex League. And that is vague, because that's technically not being assigned to a minor league affiliate. So, and the rule is once you start a minor league assignment as a position player, you only can spend 20 days down there. It's a way to stop teams from using rehab assignments as de facto options. So yes, that distinction matters. And I'm guessing Bowman worded it that way because it was worded that way to him. And I'm guessing it was worded that way to him because they wanted to be vague. So we'll see. But the fact that he is on a baseball field doing baseball activities, he's not in a training room, he's not on a treadmill, he's not in a doctor's office. He is on a baseball field, running, hitting, throwing. Like, this is what we've been waiting for. And listen, if it takes a week from tomorrow when he starts all this to get put on a rehab assignment, or 2 weeks, it's still probably going to be the same time frame, right? It's still probably going to be end of May, early June. So I don't know that this drastically changes the time frame, but every day that we did not get this news got it became more and more worrisome, because you're like, all right, well, Ronald got cleared like a week ago and we still haven't heard anything about any sort of rehab stint or rehab assignment or whatever you want to call it. So just getting to this news is a big step, because now we can at least start the process. And you're 100% right. It doesn't necessarily mean because he's in the Florida complex that he's started a rehab assignment. And that is the 20 days that you're talking about. So that distinction does matter. We'll see what it means. My guess is, again, I think it's going to be, if he comes back in May, the calendar still says May and Ronald Acuna Jr. is playing in Atlanta, I will probably be a little bit surprised. Not shocked. It could certainly happen. But I think it's probably going to be the first week of June. Now, obviously, he's got to go through all this without any setbacks. And that's, the guy's coming off 2 torn ACLs. So, none of this is guaranteed and none of this is a certainty by any stretch. So we got to survive some bullets between now and the end of, the next 3 weeks or so. But at least we've gotten to this point where he is now on a baseball field, starting tomorrow on a baseball field, doing baseball activities. That's a big milestone in his return back to Atlanta. And the Braves need him. The Braves desperately need this man. I've watched this team for the last year plus without him. And I think everybody has watched this team a year plus without him. And I don't think anybody can arrive at the conclusion that they don't need him. They need him. They need him. They need Ronald Acuna Jr. back.
Yeah, the Braves, after they finish this series with the Nationals, they'll go 7 games on the road versus the Red Sox and the Nationals. Then they'll come back home to face the Padres. Then they'll go back out on the road to face the Phillies. And then on May 30th, they'll be playing 3 against the Red Sox. And then I believe they will be playing 3 against the Diamondbacks. If I was a betting man, I would bet that homestand from May 30th through June 4th, before the Braves did go, or June 5th, before the Braves did go back out west to face the Giants on June 6th, I would imagine in the very end of May, early June, that homestand with the Red Sox and Diamondbacks, that's when they will ease Ronald Acuna Jr. back into the lineup. I think that would be a nice little window to expect a Ronald Acuna Jr. return. But speaking of a return that may come as early as this weekend, another bit of news is that Spencer Strider, again, just that bit of positive news. On Wednesday, Spencer Strider will throw a simulated game. After that, if he comes out feeling good, which everybody expects for him to, it will be decided whether, hey, maybe he needs a rehab assignment, or perhaps he'll come right back out and join the Braves rotation. But while we're waiting for Ronald Acuna Jr. to come back, maybe the next 3 weeks or so, I would say within the next 7 to 10 days, we should be able to either know when Spencer Strider is going to be pitching, or we'll have witnessed the return of Spencer Strider, and that is no small development in and of itself. Good to hear that Spencer Strider's return, maybe not imminent's the right word, but we're right on that door of him coming back from the hamstring injury.
Yeah, I think imminent is fair. They literally said if it goes well in the simulated game, he could just be activated. So, he could pitch this weekend. I mean, it's not a certainty, but like we're to the point now where we're close enough. If as long as he doesn't have another setback and the team is comfortable, like we're within the week where he could pitch. So, yeah, huge. Listen, the starting rotation has been awesome. So, you know, with Strider, I don't know how much he's going to come in and immediately change the current dynamic. But what I will say is I trust Spencer Strider to pitch at that level a hell of a lot more than I trust Bryce Elder, Grant Holmes, or AJ Smith-Shawver to continue to pitch at that level. So, you know, for the long-term health of the rotation, this is a huge deal. For the short-term health, the rotation's been fantastic, but this is not just for the short term. This is for the rest of the season, and that's where this is a big deal. And you also have, you know, for the first time in a while, you actually might have some depth in your rotation where you could even have the option of running a 6-man rotation, with the Braves really haven't even had that choice so far this year. Or you could have a guy who, you know, you're really comfortable with doing a spot start if you want to push everybody back, or you can have a long guy in the bullpen. Like, you just have more options. So, yeah, huge news. I mean, huge news. Obviously, everybody's waiting on Acuna because the offense is the problem right now, but Strider being back is massive. And just please no more. Just, I can't handle another setback. My heart, for either Acuna or Strider, quite honestly, my heart can't handle it. Like, my stress levels are already through the roof with this team because they play a 1-run game every night. Just please give me some really good health news for, like, on these two guys specifically, for like the next 12 months. Like, give me like a long stretch where it's only good news health wise with Acuna and Strider. I think we deserve that at this point. It's been a roller coaster with both of these guys. And they're, I mean, honestly, maybe the Braves' best two players. So here's hoping that both guys are on the mend and back as soon as possible.
And if you want to talk about injuries that have piled up on really significant contributors to the Braves, listen, maybe not to the level of a Strider or an Acuna, but it's been happening for years. And unfortunately, it happened with a player who's going to be on the mound in another uniform for the first time in his career against the Braves. What I'm getting at is tomorrow, Spencer Swellebach will be on the mound for the Braves. That's always really fun, but make no mistake about it. This game has probably been marked on the calendar over the past week or so for many in Braves Nation, because pitching for the Nationals tomorrow night will be one and only Michael Soroka, facing the Braves for the first time in his career. Of course, as many knows, a very promising career for the Braves was what many had hoped for Soroka. Unfortunately, in both 2020 and 2021, suffered torn Achilles. Just an absolute unfortunate chain of events that occurred with Michael Soroka, but he has worked his way back. Hasn't really ever come close to what he was in 2019 with the Braves. But Steven, it's going to be fun to see him on the mound. I hope we rock him. I hope we get that big blowout win, in spite of the fact that Soroka's on the mound. But tomorrow's going to be a really fun pitching matchup, and it's going to be awesome to welcome Michael Soroka back to Truist Park.
Yeah, that will be fun to see Mike. Mike is having a really weird year. You don't really see lines like this. Like, if you look at his line right now, so now he's obviously only pitched 10 innings, so keep that in mind. But yeah, he's got an ERA in the 7, a FIP in the 3s, and an xFIP in the low 3s. So, like, he's getting his strikeouts, which is actually not what we're used to with Mike Soroka. Like, he was a reliever last year with the White Sox, and he really found strikeout stuff, like really found it, to the point where people thought he was going to get a really decent-sized contract as a reliever in the offseason. Well, to everybody's surprise, he got a decent contract as a starter by the Nationals, obviously. And, he's only pitched 10 innings, so he's obviously not been on the mound. But I'm very curious to see what this version of Soroka looks like, because we haven't seen him in a couple of years. And Mike used to be a, sinker, pitch to contact, maybe strike out 4 or 5 guys in a game at the most. That was kind of the guy, he was. And he's kind of changed himself a little bit. And he's changed his repertoire. Honestly, with the way the Braves are swinging the bat, I would not be surprised at all if Soroka went out and had a really good game tomorrow. I would not be surprised if any pitcher had a really good game against the Braves. At this point, I mean, the Pirates threw 3 guys who I've never heard of, and all 3 of them had great games against the Braves. So, not 3 guys. They had Heaney was one of them. But Yeah, so tomorrow's going to be interesting. Swellenbach, need another strong start from Swellenbach. I hate to say it. I would love for the Braves to just absolutely rock Soroka for like 10 runs. I mean, I know that sucks, but we got to think about the Braves right now, and they need a blowout win. They need to. I legitimately don't know who of their high leverage relievers who would be available tomorrow. So, like a 10-run first inning would be tremendous. I mean, I know that would suck for Mike, but the Braves need it. So that's what I'm rooting for. It'd be great to see him on the mound. I'm happy that he got a decent sized contract in free agency. I was afraid he would never make it back and never get paid another dollar. And so for him to get I think he got like $9 or $10 million for the Nationals or something like that. That really thrilled me, quite honestly, in the offseason. So at least he's got that. And yeah, I hope the Braves, I love him. I'll always love Soroka, but I hope the Braves absolutely rock him tomorrow.
Yeah. As much as we love Soroka, and who knows, maybe he's on a 1-year contract. I think it was 1 year, like 10 million that you mentioned. Maybe he does well. Maybe he's a Brave in the future. It's not like the Braves have
a Brave in July.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like they've shied away from going with former Braves. But the point that I want to get at is that it's going to be a lot of fun to really be able to see Michael Soroka back in Truist Park. And one other thing that I think is also fun to talk about, I know here, especially when it comes to at least our segment of the podcast, we don't necessarily talk about the minor leagues that much, Stephen, but as we wrap up this edition of the Hammer Territory podcast, some really intriguing promotions here over the past few days. Giancarlo Laura going from AA to AAA. He has absolutely put on display a massive arsenal in terms of quality, a really, really, really good fastball, maybe one of the best we've seen in quite a while when it comes to the Braves. He may have a fast track to the majors as a reliever. And then J.R. Ritchie, a name that many have known for a few years in the Braves organization, coming off, I think his last outing, a complete game shutout. He got a promotion to AA as well. It's good to see some names. We talked about the minor leagues this year, Stephen. This could be a year where we could see some of the more intriguing pitching prospects start to see a move in a positive way when it comes to their prospect status. That's really good to see early in the season, those level of names getting promotions.
Yeah, I mean, J.R. Ritchie is a name I think most Braves fans will remember. He was wasn't he a first round pick?
I think that he was the 37th pick. I forget who our first pick was, but he was the one that was there when we drafted him. Yeah, I think that he was either a comp pick or a second round pick.
Yeah. So yeah, and he's obviously dealt with. Yeah, it was a comp pick. You're right, and he's obviously dealt with injuries and trying to get back, and so a high kind of profile guy. It's going to be interesting. Now he's in AA. The old saying is kind of when you're in AA, you're one phone call away because guys get called up from AA all the time. So, and then Lara, I don't know a lot about Lara. I'm not a minor league guy. We're not minor league guys here. So, but Lara does not have the best command of anybody I've ever seen. Like if you look at his numbers, it's not the greatest command. He has unbelievable stuff. The fastball slider is supposed to be nasty as hell. It's supposed to be kind of like Daysbell a little bit. That's the comp I've seen. But he's got to command it better, of course. But that's how Daysbell was too. And it took Daysbell a little while to figure that out. So, yeah, I mean, those are names that you could see in Atlanta at some point in the season, quite honestly. I mean, being in the high minors now. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm always hesitant with young players, especially young players that don't have great command, but guys figure it out all the time and make an impact. No one saw Spencer Schwellenbach coming a couple of years ago. No one really saw Grant Holmes coming, quite honestly. Guys come out of nowhere and make impacts on your team. And so, yeah, when notable guys get up to the AA and AAA, it matters.
Absolutely. And there's never a bad thing of having that depth develop as well, because not only could they contribute in Atlanta, but for a team that's hoping once again to be in the playoff picture, go after World Series aspirations, having, some prospects who are building up their overall value. They don't directly up in Atlanta. It adds to your potential cupboard of assets you can use to have in trades.
Yeah, that's a good point. Trade chips matter a ton, obviously, this time of year. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. But hey, the great thing is listen, I know we've talked about, it seems like every episode now, whether it's me and Steven or whether it's Brad and Scott or guests or whomever, there's the good with the bad. But it is a lot more productive, in my opinion, to talk about the good with the bad when you're overall winning at a pretty decent clip. At the end of the day, the simple truth is this. The Braves started off the season 0-7. They are 6 games over 500 over their past 35 games. That is at least a positive. It's mainly been due to pitching. But if this offense can get going to go with the pitching and the defense, you've got something that can turn around pretty quickly. For Stephen Tolbert, you can find him at _outliers on Twitter, myself at StatsSAC. Hammer Territory across all forms of social media. Part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts. Congratulations to Foul Territory. Over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. We are well on our way there as well here at Hammer Territory. And it's a reminder to make sure you, your friends, your family, people that you do or don't like, and hey, the guy that you randomly meet in the grocery store while you're doing the honey-do list, let them all know to subscribe to the Hammer Territory podcast. Until next time, for Stephen Tolbert and Shawn Coleman, go Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory podcast.